Excellent. Good morning, everybody. This is CS-Sensei Saturday morning webinar, and this morning we have an individual who has just recently, this week, passed his CISSP exam. So, Chris, I wanted to give you the opportunity to share how it was, what you did to study, how you became successful, and how others can do the same in their own studies. Go ahead.
Hey, it's a little choppy on my side. Maybe my computer's updating, so I hope I'm clear and fine. So back in September, I was looking through some federal government next step opportunities and found out they were asking about certifications. And I saw CISSP mentioned about 5 times, so I said maybe that's a sign for me to go ahead and take it. I'm approaching 5 years in July, and went ahead and just started studying, reading through the books. And January, actually around Christmas time frame, my wife and I were looking at budgets, and we agreed upon paying for each other's certifications using our joint money. So we went ahead, I went ahead and did the CISSP. She's taking certified fraud examinations. She's a white collar accountant for a company, and she really wants to get into fraud investigations. I'll let her tell her story in another place, another time. So I started a study plan. I actually posted on LinkedIn, and all the things I've learned from Professor Messer for the CompTIA exams, I have adopted with every exam I take. And usually that means 1 book, 1 video series, 1 practice questions, and having a community of folks to basically go through topics and questions and bounce questions off to help you with studying. So I used the Body of Knowledge textbook that CISSP gave me in the original study guide. The video series, I went ahead and purchased the ISC Squared Official, but then I bounced off of that one and went into a YouTube exam cram on the last week. And I had a book of practice questions and a application that helped me with practice questions as well. It's called the Learns app. I used a free tier, which still gave me like a blanket set of 10 questions for each of the domains. And I just went through that daily. If I'm on a train, if I'm bored and I'm playing with my phone, just went through each question. And any question I got wrong, I would write it down and look it up in a book somewhere or online to learn more. There was a couple times I had to pull the old CS-Sensei videos to learn and study them. Test day, I would say I did a smart thing and a scary thing at the same time. I was reading pass or fail reports on Reddit, and people saying how the test works. And this is not part of the non-disclosure agreement. I can be public about this. It's a computer-aided test, meaning that for each question you answer, the system adjusts to what you can and cannot answer. So let's say you get one question A for topic A, and if you get it right, it'll compute your probability of passing or probability of failing. So it gives you a next question of, hey, okay, you passed this question, here's maybe a tougher question. Or if you fail this question, here's a much easier question. And here's the problem with this test versus CompTIA test. You can't go back. Once you answer the question, you're finished. You can't go back to that question. It stores. And the test is 125 to 175 questions. The test will cut off when it has a confidence of passing or failing. So if you make it to question 125 and it has extreme confidence you're going to pass, it'll stop the test and say, yep, you passed. Or if you go 125 and the computer has the confidence you're going to fail, it stops the test and say you fail. Where I got nervous, it didn't stop. I went all the way to 175. And question 125, I said, okay, it's still trying to decide if I'm going to pass and fail. Let me slow down. Let me read each question. And once I slow down and reach each question to 175, I was calmed down. I would admit that at 175, I was like, okay, I was waiting for my letter saying, nope, you failed. The lady was very hilarious. She quiet, looked at my ID, looked at my paper, and she gave me the paper. And she waited a minute, kind of gave me a blank look, and she said, congratulations, you passed. What I would suggest for the mentees is you're going to see a lot of job advertisements that say CISSP. You're going to be tempted to want to take it. What I would say is the CISSP is two types of tests. Number one, if you're interested in a managerial or operations role, that's the target audience for a test. If you're interested in pen testing, red teaming, even though some companies will put that qualification there to have that knowledge, I wouldn't suggest just jumping in and taking it. That's the first side of it. And then the second side of it is there were a few questions where I had to rely on my 4 3/4 years of experience on it. If you're going to want to jump and take that test, you're probably going to have to take some time and really get to know all the topics and material. They'll sit there and say it's a mile wide and an inch deep, meaning you don't go too much in the weeds about it, looking like a manager. But at the same time, you don't want to go into this test cold turkey. It's a really challenging exam. I struggle with reading English myself. One of the tricks they like to do is restate questions in different sentences in different English. And they'll ask you, pick the best one. And all 4 questions would be correct. But you have to really understand what they're asking in the scenario to pick what is the best one. So you can't just sit there and say, okay, I see topic A, and all 4 of these topics are the same, and just guess and win. You have to understand what topic A is asking you. It could be a managerial option, it could be a technical option, it could be an operational option, it could be those 4 different options. You have to pick the right option for the scenario. My suggestion as a beginner is do the CC first, see what topics you do, and go from there. Like the CC is a certified in cybersecurity ISC scores test. But if you're wanting a more technical side, I would sit there and say stick with the CompTIA level or even some of the vendor search from there. But I'll take any questions from that point. What I'm going to do next, I am going to rest until September. I have some events coming up, so I'm going to help my wife make sure she can get her certified fraud. We're going to pay some extra for the test, and then I'm going to take care of her. Then I'm just going to enjoy I'm probably going to be focusing on doing the homeworks for CS-Sensei until that point, and watching the news and looking for tools and helping you guys out. And in September, I'll make a choice what I want to do next. Any questions?
Excellent. Yeah, I would like to point out, historically, in a lot of the exams that we have taken, the lower level exams, you approach it because most exams these days are multiple choice. They have to be that way because written exams become subjective. So in order to be as objective as possible, they make it multiple choice. And in the past, what we can remember doing is you'd look at the 4 answers and you'd say, well, that one's not correct. And then you'd say, well, I can figure out that that one's not correct. So you end up with a 50-50 choice of which one of the 2 remaining you're going to choose, which sort of makes it sound really good. What Chris pointed out is all 4 can be correct, but you have to determine the most correct answer. And that's a real challenge. Yep. Anybody have any questions?
Yeah. Chris, I don't know, maybe some of the questions that you had stuck in your mind and you spent some time to thinking about this after the exam. Do you have any particular example?
I am subject to a non-disclosure agreement with ISC Squared, so I cannot go into deep, dark details about these tests, questions. What I can tell you is a lot of the questions I got, they were written, first off, they were written in such a way that I had to read them twice to make sure I understood the scenario that they were asking for. There were a few questions that were related to my job role. So when they sit there and say 5 years experience, they kind of mean 5 years experience. It's not an entry level test by any means at all. Topically wise, Kate, unfortunately I cannot share that because I did sign a non-disclosure agreement to not reveal that. Mm-hmm. My apologies, but I'm bound.
No, sure. Yeah, I just didn't know about it. Thank you.
I will say that the official practice test questions in the LearnZ app, they're not exact questions, but I will say that they did help me in the test. And I'll leave it at that.
And how long did it take for the whole exam? How much the process was?
They give you 4 hours to take it, 240 minutes total. Is that right? That math does not make sense to me. Give me a minute. Or, sorry. It is a 4-hour test. Yep, 240 minutes. Mm-hmm.
240 minutes and up to 175 questions.
Correct, yep. I took, I think I had about 90 minutes left when I went to 175.
And you also mentioned you can't go back and review, right?
That is correct, yep. Once you answer a question, you're done with that question. You can't go back to it.
Any other questions? Okay. Well, first of all, Chris, I congratulate you. This is a career moment for you, and it basically, I'll just say it myself. Your time on the software team is limited. Yes. So, yeah, you're going to be going somewhere, and that's a good thing. You've got the right attitude. You are definitely a team player. You like sharing. You've got great ethics in the way you do things. And whatever we can do to help you along the way or cheer you on, we're just happy to do that for you. So big congratulations.
Second part of the successful week is my CIO. There was a ask saying, hey, is there anybody who wants to be spotlighted? And I raised my hand and said, yeah, I'd like to be spotlighted. And the person who does it goes, okay, it's a win-win for us. It's promotional for us, but it's also promotional for you. And I said, okay, that sounds fine. And I interviewed for it. And then, yes, the spotlight came on, but my CIO came in, reposted, and said, Chris, my friend, thank you for your service. And then on the comment below, little background about me, mentees. I was a cybersecurity reskiller. I was picked out of, how many people have been in that? Out of 750 applicants for this program, I was one of 20. And the mother of that program, the person who made that program, she's very proud of me, and I've pretty much become a poster child of this program for her. She was a former deputy CIO under the Trump administration, and she goes, I remember meeting Chris, and she told Gundeep that, hey, he's gone through this academy and he's really good about extending the Labor Department's mission, and he's a great guy. And Gundeep went on to say, wow, this is cruel and all that. It's all been public on LinkedIn, and just that in itself is good networking as well. So anything, any other advice I can give to the mentees is please join groups, apply to different meetups, apply to different programs, but also meet people and get to know people in the industry. And don't be afraid to speak up and chime in and just build those relationships from there. But that was my week has just been awesome professionally. It's probably a top 5, if not top 3.
That is excellent, Chris. By the way, my wife, just so everybody knows, my wife is right off camera here because she's not dressed for the part. It's 5:15 in the morning here, so she's there with a cup of coffee. But she did want to say, Chris, that your achievement has given her some new energy to work on, some of the things that she wants to do. Her history, she's a former PKI engineer. She helped to roll out what the DoD calls CAC cards, but they are PKI cards for logging into resources DoD-wide across the Department of Defense. So Dolly was part of the team that helped put that together. And so she's always had this security focus. And at one point she had a clearance that was, one of those clearances that is like, if I tell you I have to kill you sort of clearances. So she's had a really interesting career, and it was sort of cut short with her issues with her spine, but she's always been interested in giving back. So you are you're an inspiration to her. Yeah. Very good. So anybody else have anything before we jump into our scenario exercise?
Yeah, I don't have any questions. I just want to congratulations, Chris, on your achievement. This is something really amazing, and this is the one of the certificates that I guess, like, if you get this, like, you can really be successful, like, and putting something like this on your resume, it's a big thing, like, and I'm actually thinking about this too, but maybe not this year, but maybe next year, like, maybe even you can give me, like, probably some tips and suggestions for how to get ready for these certificates.
Yes. I don't want to correct you, but ethically speaking, from the ISC² side, once you pass the test, you're not officially certified. You can't even say you're certified. You have to get endorsed. So my next steps, definitely immediately, is I have to fill out an application with ISC² to get endorsed. And there's 3 routes I have to go through. I have 3 choices to do that, not 3 routes, 3 choices. First choice is I can get ISC² to endorse me, meaning that I give them a resume or give them a work history. They do their investigation, whatever they do in their backside. Reading on the forums, they sit there and say they do many things, but it's on the discretion of ISC². More than likely, I'll probably have to get a letter from my boss saying, yep, Chris did all this, and that would probably be a check mark and move through. Or I have to wait 6 years to get the 5 years experience, which is called becoming an associate of ISC². And they actually sit there and tell you, you do not say you're CISSP certified. You have to say you are an associate of ISC² on your resume. Depends on how the employer interprets that. That's an option for me. Probably that's going to be my least likely road I'm going to take, because I already have 4 3/4. Why waste 6 more years to get a place there? And then the third option is I need to find somebody from ISC² who already has CISSP designation to endorse me. So it's not like CompTIA, where in Security Plus you pass a test, you could sit there and say you're Security Plus certified. This test, you have to be endorsed by somebody or by ISC² to actually say you're certified.
Yeah, it requires a lot of experience, and yeah.
What I can say is I have passed the CISSP test. That's pretty much it. And that's this certification. The first thing you're being taught is, hey, here's the code of ethics. Understand and read the code of ethics. And the second part is read the test questions and learn about what they're trying to ask you. Are you trying to be a leader? Are you trying to be an engineer? Are you trying to be an architect? That's how you would answer your question. And there's a lot of videos out there that says, hey, a lot of these questions, if you think like a manager, you're fine. I'm going to add on, not only do you need to think like a manager, you need to understand what the question is asking you. So you almost want to read the question twice. You want to first read the question, read the choices, then read the question again. Just make sure you understand what point of view they're asking from. And that's how you can pick the best answer. Because they will try to trick you and say, here is the best answer. So if any hint, Nerman, that I would give you, I would say pick up the CISSP Common Body of Knowledge textbook and just start reading it. Don't even worry about registering for the test or studying for the test. Just start reading it and see if that is something you want to do.
Yeah, I was thinking about that just to read the book, like even though, like, I mean, I'm planning something like that maybe next year, but I was thinking like just to, get the book and read the book. So even though if I don't kind of take the test, like, I'm just curious, like I would like to read the whole book.
Yeah, I'm considering you're still interested in the red teaming kind of stuff from our past interactions. I don't know if CISSP is right for you. I don't know. So my only suggestion is to look and read it and see if it is for you.
Yeah, that's a good point. Yeah, you're right.
And if you can't afford the $65 textbook, I definitely, for sure, your local library has it available.
Well, I will buy it. I mean, I always thinking about those things. Like, I know people usually focus on things they do, or, like, okay, I want to become like, I don't know, like, specialized in networking, and they take the first certificate, Network Plus or something. I like to go everywhere. Like, even though, like, I've never, like, I recently took, like, GRC master class, and I completed and I got certificate for master class. And I really hate GRC. To be honest, I'm not GRC guy. Like, so I really like skills. Like, I like to work on keyboard. But I took it. I was thinking, like, why not? Like, just like getting something to my, getting more knowledge, getting more experience. It's good to know, even though I'm not going to do anything with GRC. So that's me. Like, so
cost benefit analysis. It's a cost benefit. I think CASP, like the CASP, the higher level CompTIA, which is a little more technical. It's upwards of $400, $500. I have to look at it again. CISSP was $800. So that's another consideration. Not to put walls on you, but just let you know.
Yeah, I was just checking that now. Thank you.
Very good.
Nope.
Very good. Again, congratulations, Chris. Big, big, big kudos for you. Okay, everybody, I wanted to spend some time doing an exercise. Can everybody see my screen?
Yep.
Okay. First off, big, big, big thanks to Kate, because this slide deck template came from her. If you guys remember back in January, I announced a slide deck template competition for our Speakers Bureau, and this was Kate's submission, and I did select it as being the template that we were going to use for the Speakers Bureau. So if you want to assist with that, you want to help write slide presentations or develop slides, particular topics that you or other members of the team can publicly brief on, this is a slide deck template that we all should be using. So first of all, big thank you to Kate for your submission.
Thank you.
Okay, and the photo I got from your profile, so if you don't like it, you got to change your profile. All right, so here's the scenario, and I want you all to be prepared to do some research, like right now, as part of what we're talking about. So if you're near your computer, bring up your web browser and be prepared to start doing some actual in-depth research, because I want to see what you think about, where you go to get it, and what you come back with as you're retrieving it. All right, so this is going to be a group think sort of thing. It will not benefit you very much if you just listen. Okay, so first things first, you're the CISO of a metropolitan medical center, and I'm your CEO. I'm a worrisome fellow, but I put my complete trust in you when it comes to information security matters. In other words, what you say goes with me. When walking down the hospital hallway this morning, I came across, and I'll show it to you in the next slide. I immediately call you and ask the question, I saw this on our hallway monitor. Should I be concerned? Now, first things first, it's perfectly acceptable to say, we're going to research it, I'll let you know, and then give a time frame to do it. But because it's to the CEO, that time frame needs to be short. You can't say, I'll let you know by Friday, or something like that. Okay? So do you all see what it says on the screen? XIBO isn't responding. Do you want to close it? All right? Everybody got that?
Yeah.
So the clock starts now. You just told the CEO, me, that you would let me know in 20 minutes if this was something that I need to be worried about, okay? So discuss your thoughts and steps. What questions would you immediately have, and how would you find the answers? So let's start, just to give you something to think about, start with the 5 W's. Who? It was discovered by the CEO, but you also have to ask yourself who is affected or potentially affected, and it could be anybody that sees that monitor in the hallway. Okay? Second, what is XIBO? Where? It occurs on the networked monitors in the hallway. Oops. When? It was observed right now this morning. It was newly observed, so you should probably presume that it occurred overnight. Why? You've got to have some sort of concept about that why before you can call your CEO back in 20 minutes. Oops, now it's 19 minutes. And I'm doing that on purpose. Okay, so what are some of the questions that you'd ask? What are some of the things that come to mind? Anybody can jump in, and please do.
Well, I mean, I was just checking. I didn't know what is XIBO is. So that's the first thing that I was just Googling, and then I was asking GPT like, what is the XIBO, and I just put there like XIBO is not responding, and I just got like a few of those suggestions how to troubleshoot the application.
So what is, we'll call it Zybo. I'm not sure how to pronounce it.
Okay, Zybo, yeah.
What is Zybo? What does GPT tell you?
It says the digital software, sign age software. Yeah.
Do you know what signage? Does everybody know what signage means? Harminder, do you have signage? I saw you were off mute. Okay. Signage.
No,
okay.
no, I never heard this word, Zibo, signage. This is new for me, first time.
Okay. Zibo is the brand name of the software. Signage is something that you would see like if you were in a public area that shows things like, oh, you need to check with your dentist every 6 months, or oh, we have a sale over in hardware, or whatever. Things that pop up on the monitors around wherever you're at. And it could be, in this case, this actually occurred with me this week, and this is why I grabbed it as a scenario. I was in Tucson Medical Center, and this was on the monitor screen for their signage. And it says Zybo is not responding. So I put it into a cybersecurity frame of reference. So Zybo is for signage. If you have a large area, like in this case, it could be 20 or 30 monitors out in the hallway, you would probably have, and I went straight to the Zybo website, and Zybo, if you look at their solutions, the very top one says Content Management System. Basically, this is the standard for signage, especially if it's in a large area. You've got a server that you put everything onto, and then you've got a whole bunch of slave systems that connect into the server, get the information, and display it. And, you know, rotating slides. And that's signage, digital signage, and how it runs. So you've got a content management system that is running on a server, and then you've got all of the players that are out on the out in the hallways. So you could have, for example, if you look at it, Zybo for Android, Zybo for Linux, Zybo for Tizen, whatever that is, Zybo for WebOS, and Zybo for Windows. So you could have a variety of different clients for the Zybo CMS. Okay, does that make sense so far? So let's make some assumptions on this, so we can, you know, move forward a little bit. Our hospital is using Zybo CMS with a local, in other words, in-house Windows server. That's where Zybo CMS is installed. Your Ethernet networked monitors are just generic TV hardware with a connected Android dongle that runs the Zybo player. All right, they're just TVs with this thing plugged into the side, and this is on the network. Your dongles connect each night to the hospital CMS server and download content and updates. Make sense? And then they just sit and display it all day long, check in at night and say, is there anything new? Then sit and display it all day long. Everything is running on our hospital's internal network. Everybody understanding that so far? Today is Wednesday, and there's a point for that. So, did any of you do research on CVEs? Did any of you start to look at Zybo vulnerabilities?
No.
Uh-oh. Well, remember, you're the CISO. So, first off, you have to, yes, you have to learn about Zybo, but you also have to immediately head toward, is Zybo good or bad for us to have? So you have to immediately start thinking about, does this have any vulnerabilities I need to know about? And, you know, who was the Yahoo that installed it here with all these vulnerabilities or whatever before I arrived. You know, when you arrive at a new location, you inherit everything, good or bad, that was done before you. As the CISO, it's your responsibility. All right? So, did anybody, you know, since I've started talking now, did anybody look up CVEs for Zybo? Okay, I will tell you quickly, there were 3 CVEs published, I believe, from 2012 to 2016 in reference to Zybo vulnerabilities. All 3 of them were in reference to one particular file. Has anybody gotten that?
Yeah,
Chris?
I'm just looking now.
Okay. What is the file that contains these vulnerabilities? This is important. Somebody say it. Chris, you can say it.
Unmute. Index.php is one of the web ones.
Index.php. Okay. Index.php. If you look on the screen, what file? Index.php, and then bullet number 2, what does that tell you Zybo is written in? What code was used to write Zybo? Anybody? It wasn't Python. It was written in PHP.
PHP.
Yep. Because it has index.php, you can presume that everything behind it is also PHP. Okay? PHP, oh, by the way, this is a big hint as well. PHP is only for servers. You don't have any clients with PHP. So, because the CMS is written in PHP, but PHP only works for servers, what does that tell you about all of the players? For Windows, for Linux, for Android, like your Android dongles. The players are not written in PHP. Make sense? So you're starting to get a concept here of, number 1, how complex things are, but also how they interact with each other. I hope this is helping everybody. So, the Zybo support forum search, did anybody do a Zybo support? Oh, Chris, raise your hand. Yes.
So my question here, and I'm going to be careful with my language because I like both my CISO and my CIO. How much in the weeds do you really need to get to answer the overarching question? And if the answer is going to destroy this lesson, please don't answer it. Say, Chris, we'll worry about that later.
No, you have to get to the why. You have to get to the why.
Okay. Gotcha.
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
And oh, by the way, the why may not be as simple as you think. But I know where you're headed. The why may not be as simple as you think, because if you go to the support forums, it talks a little bit more about Zybo, but it also mentions some other things. And I'm going to just jump further on here. Here's where your current event knowledge will be helpful, because these CVEs were written or discovered and documented between 2012 and 2016. Okay? Now, Zybo, and nobody has mentioned this yet, Zybo, what type of software is it? Two big, important security words for software. Open source. Okay? Why is open source a big deal?
because the code is open to the public for editing and any other customization. It is free to, you have free access to that code, and you can do anything you want to customize it for your needs and wanting. It's not proprietary code where it's locked down and you need special permissions to actually do any customizations. A best example in the world is Apple's operating system is proprietary.
And Microsoft's. Source code for Apple and source code for Microsoft don't exist except at the corporate headquarters. Closely guarded secrets. Open source means you can take that stuff, do what with it what you want, compile it however you want to do it, put in any libraries you want, etc., and make your own software that uses that code. And I will tell you, your CEO is going to say, I want the cheapest, the thing that'll get me the most bang for the buck. So open source to your CEO means, ooh, we can save some money. All right? Is this making sense? I hope you guys are understanding how this is progressing, because this is how a CISO has to think. Open source, I'll give you an idea about this. There was a time a few years back when the Department of Defense forbade anybody from using open source software. They said, if it is open source, it's prohibited on DoD networks. Now, they've gotten better about it, but open source was automatically a security concern. Didn't say it was a vulnerability, but it was a concern. So when you hear open source, be thinking, I need to, be a little more particular on this, instead of somebody handing you a software package with an installer across the internet where it comes down and says, here's the ISO, install it, and you're done. Open source means other stuff could have been added to it or removed from it or edited within it before it gets compiled. All right, so here's the big question you have to ask yourself, or at least I did when I was looking at it. What massive vulnerability was discovered several years ago after the last Zybo CVE was reported? And I'll give you even one more hint. Tenable called it the single biggest, most critical vulnerability of the last decade.
Is that like something regarding like uploading like malicious file? Like
no, this is a vulnerability. A big vulnerability in another piece of open source code. Anybody?
Is that I find something, I don't know, is that like RCE, like remote, regarding remote code execution?
Well, that's why knowledge of current events it needs to be something that you are doing, because there are lots of vulnerabilities that are discovered. Some of them are bigger than others. One of the big ones was Microsoft Print Nightmare. If you remember that one, it's been in the code for 14 years, but that only affected Microsoft operating systems. This is in PHP. So, probably, so this is why you got to know everything so you can draw intelligence from out of what you've learned. So what was the single biggest, most critical vulnerability in the last decade? Anybody want to guess?
SQL injection.
SQL injection is an attack method, and SQL injections have been around for 20 years. So talking about the biggest vulnerability, it has to be more specific than that. SQL injections remain one of the biggest attack vectors for anybody that's doing direct attack. But that's not the vulnerability. The vulnerability would be SQL is vulnerable to injections. But remember, this is written in PHP. So it didn't have SQL. All right, I'm going to give it away. Log4j. You guys remember hearing about Log4j? Is it possible that Zybo, being open source, might have also used the open source Log4j framework? Does anybody remember what Log4j did? Not the vulnerability, but why somebody would have put it into their software. Log4j was a free logging program. It's a library that basically said, if watch for these things in the packets that come through, and if it reports this, give it this number. If it reports this, give it this number. If it reports this, give it this number. And then you rate them according to criticality. So it's like, is it a security issue? Is it an informational issue? Is it etc. Log4j was a free reporting framework for logging the code that you have written. Many people put Log4j into their software. Why? Because it was open source, therefore free. See what I'm saying? So now you have open source Zybo, and you have to ask yourself, was open source Log4j possibly used? Anybody have a guess on this? Because this is where everything all comes together. Log4j. Come on, guys.
Possible.
It's okay to guess. It's okay
possible.
to guess.
It is possible.
Somebody else want to bring your thoughts? Log4j, could it be in Zybo? Well, okay. Let me give you the answer from the Zybo forum. Hello, everyone. Our apologies for not responding to this sooner. Zybo CMS does not use Java. Log4j was written in Java. And there you go. And Zybo for Android, which is written in Java, doesn't use Log4j. So there is no risk from the vulnerability. This is Zybo telling you that Log4j is not a concern because it wasn't used anywhere in their CMS or their players. You're off the hook. Okay? Make sense? Your CMS was written in PHP. Some of the players, in this case Android, was not written in PHP because it is client, and PHP only works on servers. This is real good stuff for you to learn system-wise. PHP servers, all right? Put that in your head, because 10 years down the road, it's going to occur to you in the middle of a circumstance, and you're going to say, no, PHP is not on our clients. Well, how come? Because PHP is for servers. Make sense? Okay, so this guy from Zybo said PHP is not a concern. We didn't use it anywhere. Okay, so what else could it be? We figured out it's not Log4j. I'll give you one critical component, and Chris sort of gave you the smiley face on it. Why did I say it was Wednesday? Everybody?
Can I talk, Scotty?
Sure thing.
Windows likes to use Tuesday as their patching updates, hence the term Patch Tuesday.
Patch Tuesday. You need to remember that, because that's when your Windows server that's running the CMS, remember I gave you that scenario, probably went out and got its updates and could have rebooted. Make sense, everybody? So you call your CEO back within the agreed upon 20 minutes, and what do you tell him or her? Well, it's me, so what do you tell me? And remember to use the proper phrases on this. You can't say yes or no. Don't ever get into a position where you feel you're forced to say yes or no. Always give it the level of response and truthfulness that you can back up. So for example, you can say the indications are, or the research shows, or et cetera, et cetera. You don't have to say yes or no. As a CISO, always balance your responses. Okay?
I am having my technicians look into it, but sir, today is Wednesday. I believe it's the third Wednesday of the month. Windows have made an update. I believe it has something to do with it. We're having our technicians looking at it. We'll update you in the next 20 minutes.
Okay, now that's the positive side. How do you mitigate the negative side when you're talking to the CEO? I'll give you some thoughts. You can basically say things like, we've eliminated all of the likely suspects when it comes to security vulnerabilities. Okay? We've investigated, and it's nothing that shows as being a vulnerability, so we're thinking it's an operational issue, perhaps based on the Microsoft patching. Okay. I haven't said yes or no, but I have given my CEO, in this case me, assurance that number one, we're on it, number two, we've researched it, number three, there is so far no direct indication that it's based on any sort of vulnerability.
Okay. I responded based upon the slide that said, here's the screen that Zybo is not responding. And, and the CEO said, hey, should we worry about this? And I believe I said, nothing to worry about, but we're having our technicians look at it. We're eliminating all the possible stuff. Okay, cool. Thank you, Scotty.
Sure. So here's something I want you to think about, additional best practices, because remember, you're the CISO. So you always need to be thinking about doing things in the most secure manner possible, both short-term and long-term. So you're going to go back and look at the signage and say, is there any way we could, number one, make this more secure while still being usable, but number two, keep these things from popping up again. Here are some ideas. Segmentation, like a dedicated signage VLAN, is always a good idea if you can do it. It is one of the primary security measures that an organization will use. They will segment their network off. So if you've got like security cameras, only security related stuff will work for those cameras. Nothing's going to touch those cameras. Nobody's going to be able to connect into it from their desk, for example. The security cameras are segregated off. The servers are segregated off. The workstations are segregated off. Your wireless network is segregated off. You manage the various things that connect to the LAN. So my suggestion here is a dedicated VLAN for your signage. Another one, if you were fast enough to go look at Zybo, it pointed out that your Zybo clients could use HTTP, which is unsecure. So make sure that they use HTTPS or some other secure connection protocol. All right, because it says right in their brochure, you can connect to Zybo using HTTP. I said, well, that's not good. Okay, here's another one. Make sure that your CMS server is truly patched. both the operating system, which we spoke about, Microsoft Patch Tuesday, but also the CMS and any apps that are used on that server. In other words, you can't just say, Microsoft updates, we're good. No, Zybo CMS updates. And what if you've got, other stuff on there like a backup routine or something? Make sure everything on the server gets its updates. Okay? Next one. Consider a firewall rule set that basically says this Zybo CMS server can only correspond with the patching and update server at zybo.com or whatever it's called. Nowhere else. If anything else out on the internet wants to get into our Zybo server, it has to be coming from that zybo.com server IP address. See what I'm saying? You've said, this server has to go out and get its updates, but you have tightly restricted it and said it'll only go to that server and come back. Okay? Making sense? Here's another one. Verify that all your little Android dongles are up to date and that they don't have vulnerabilities. Those are on all of your hallway monitors. Remember, you're the CISO. You have to be thinking about everything from a whole package perspective. Role-based CMS administration with attribution. Do you know what I mean when I say that? Has anybody been studying in your identity and access management? When I say role-based administration with attribution, this is a absolute red flag for anybody in security because the folks in ops aren't going to do this willingly.
Mm-hmm.
Chris, go ahead.
Oh.
Well, okay. I'll do it and I'll make it fast.
Yes, go ahead.
You should not have an account that logs into the Zybo CMS system of administrator or super user or whatever, because that doesn't have attribution. Everybody in your shop says, oh yeah, well, to get into the CMS you log in as admin. No, you don't, because what if you've got 12 people, including 2 guys that got fired 6 months ago, that all know your admin login and password? So you have attribution. Every person has an account. Remember I said it's on a Windows server. So you think of Active Directory. Everybody has an account. You give that account access to a group. And that group is, for example, Zybo admins. And
yes.
Then that group has permissions to get to the Zybo CMS server. Not log into the Zybo CMS server as admin. And I will tell you, I'm sorry.
You almost want to create an Active Directory account that's called Zybo admins and then add users and take out users, right?
You want to create a group. And then make sure that the CMS server acknowledges that group.
Role-based access control. Thank you. Yep,
Role-based access control. Exactly right. Also, seems how you're the CISO, you have to be thinking about what happens when all this stuff gets old. Remember, it's all yours. And it's not just come to work and everything's working fine, so I'm cool. No, you have to be thinking about the life cycle of everything in your organization so that it will remain secure and you don't break the bank when you need something new. You've already planned for it in your budget. I told you about this 3 years ago. Okay, life cycle replacement. When Zybo is, no more, or these Android dongles don't work anymore, or, my Windows server gets upgraded, how does that affect everything so the people walking down the hallway can still get their updates on when they're supposed to do their dental appointments? It's all up to you. Make sense? That's all I have. What do you guys think? What was this helpful?
Yeah.
Yes, for me.
It's really good. Yeah.
This is a totally new thing for me. I never heard such kind of word. Thank you.
Thank you.
It's a systems approach. A lot of us sort of think about things as terms of, this is my phone, and I have to make my phone work well. No, your phone is connected, and we mentioned this when we did our mobile device security. This phone could be connected to like 3 or 4 different networks. You could have near field communication turned on, so you use it for your, Apple Pay or Google Pay or whatever. So it's not just the phone anymore. It's what interacts with the phone or what could interact with the phone and might not be a good idea. So be thinking systems rather than components. Does that make sense? And it all fits together at that CISO level, including what happens when the stuff gets old and we have to replace it. Fun stuff. I hope you guys had fun, because I literally was walking through the hospital and saw that thing on the sign and said, oh, this would be a good exercise. And I took a photo of it, and then all of this came from that. I did the research pretending that I'm the CISO, and the CEO, gave me the phone call and said, hey, what's up? And the answer is not, oh, well, we rebooted the thing and it's gone now. It's got to be deeper than that.
So I have a quick question. Is the CISO know all these technical background, how this works, what we used, and all these things?
Well, you are the Chief Information Security Officer. You are considered to be C-level, which means you actually help to program the budget for your organization. That means you have to know stuff many years reaching out into the future, and you have to have decided what's most important for us to implement, those sorts of things. So it's no longer systems by themselves. It's how systems support the business of this hospital or this whatever. Because you're going to be helping to generate, and you will definitely affect the hospital's operating budget. A CISO is a big deal. And if you don't know it all yourself, you better have people that you can immediately call and say, tell me about this. How does it affect our business? How could it affect our business? How do we stop it from affecting our business negatively? That's why you always need to hire yourself a good team of folks and treat them like royalty so that the good folks stay. It's not all technical.
Yes, okay, got it.
Okay? All right, everybody. I hope you had fun with this. I sure did. So I'm going to go look at this afterwards. It's so much fun after I put it up on YouTube. All right, everybody have a wonderful Saturday, and we will talk later.